Story time, story time, story time at Adventure. Hello, everybody. My name is Cho Kong, and I'm the Artistic Director at Adventure Theater. Thank you for joining us for our episode of Storytime today. A few housekeeping things we have to do. We're going to do the slides and talk about our summer camp. Monica, can you bring up the slides for me? Great. So, hey, everyone. Wow, we're getting ready for the summer. And these are going to be live. So ATMTC Academy is doing our summer camps for grades 1 through 12. So join us. We're so excited. My son is super excited. He can't wait for these summer camps to start. It'll be in person. We'll have all kinds of COVID protocols. So please, we're looking forward to seeing many of you bright and shiny faces over at our Glen Echo and over at Winter Green Spaces. So please join us. Sign up at atmtc.org. Next slide, please. We also have some online summer camps. So if you're not uncomfortable with it in person yet, you can go to these programs, and they're available at summeratmtc.org for more information. As you can see, these kids are they're still having fun at our digital. Margot, who is my partner on the Education Academy, has put together a world-class musical theater program and has done a remarkable job of taking that world-class musical theater program online. Next slide, please. So also we have some competitive scholarships, and they're now open for auditions. Now these are videotaped auditions. We will have some live auditions as well. I hope I'm not misquoting that, but we will have some live auditions. So the priority deadline is April 12th, which is passed, but we have a final deadline on May 16th for our in-person auditions on May 17th. So it is in person. The deadline for signing up is May 16th for our in-person auditions on May 17th. So please, please, please sign up to get these competitive scholarships. They're really, really worth your time, and we get to see some really amazing talent. I believe that's the last slide. Is that correct? Yes. So one last thing. Of course, we do this every week. We have now done over almost 175 hours of digital programming through the year that is now COVID. So please visit us at atmtc.org and donate what you can. Again, please donate. We need all the support that you can give us. We have been able to weather the storm through these rough times, but we will need as much help as you can give us to get us through to our 70th anniversary year, going to happen next season. So again, visit atmtc.org and donate what you can. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Now, our guest. Our staff is amazing, and we're always looking for different folks, especially local writers who will be presenting, who are storytellers, who are trying to do something for especially families and kids. And we were fortunate to find out that we have an amazing local spokesperson who has done a lot of work. Mr. Qasim Rashid is a Pakistani-born American author. He's a human rights activist, politician, and attorney. He previously served as the national spokesman for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community USA, and he is the author of several books, including The Wrong Kind of Muslim, Talk to Me, and Hannah and the Ramadan Gift, which is what we're going to share today. He is an immigrant and a proud American Muslim, and above all, a devoted father and husband. Qasim earned his law degree at the University of Richmond. He's a local boy, School of Law, and has a long track record of serving diverse communities in Virginia. He's channels his passion to serve the marginalized by working with national and international nonprofit organizations that advance women's rights, improve water, food, shelter, healthcare, and education access for children living in poverty, and fight to protect the religious freedom for all. So we are really fortunate to have Qasim with us. Qasim, come on out. Come on out, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. You are a lucky find for us because we finding local authors who particularly right for families and kids, are a gem. So we're so lucky to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
No, it's my privilege to be here, and I'm always grateful to partner with amazing organizations like yourself. I didn't realize that you're coming up on your 70th anniversary. It reminds me to go and make a donation myself to keep your amazing work going. So.
Thank you for saying that. What I love about you and your history, which is why I also love that you wrote this book, is that you are incredibly active within the Muslim community as well as politically and out in you've been interviewed often, locally as well as nationally. So, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I think it really comes down to representation matters. And as we know, the narratives that we tell, the stories that we tell really define and shape the future. And so for me, this was about making sure that my children saw themselves in children's books. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, you'd go to the library, whether it was the school library or the town library, and you'd look at children's books and you'd be hard pressed to find any book about Ramadan, let alone a children's book. There were mostly Christmas books, which were also fun, and books on Hanukkah, which were also fun, but there really wasn't much beyond that. And so for me, this was about helping add to the narrative of making sure that all children feel represented. And I wanted this to be a book not just for Muslim children, but for children in general, to learn about Ramadan and to feel more empowered and more knowledgeable about this really important time for 1.6 billion people worldwide.
Well, that's the important part, right? Because we forget what we're seeing often is people normalize othering. Our kids out there, the things that people talk about now is they talk about making other people feel uncomfortable that are not like you. So because you don't know who they are and you don't know where they're from and why they do the things that they do, it becomes easier to dismiss them or be mean to them. And so what we're trying to make sure that we do, and why this story is so fun and important, is that it actually reminds everyone, because I know every single one of you kids out there and your families, your parents, have a friend or have someone they know who is Muslim. And so this is a great way to normalize these people in your lives, especially this really, really strange time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even go build upon those really thoughtful comments that, right now at a time when, according to most surveys, 60% of Americans have never actually met a Muslim. This is an opportunity to learn about us from us and just better equip yourself, inoculate yourself against misinformation, against hate even, and hopefully gift your children this gift of knowledge to really understand that this month of Ramadan really comes down to finding ways to build bridges of humanity, of compassion, of unity, and finding a reason to serve your neighbor. And I think that's the message that is universal across all faiths and ideologies, certainly a unifying message that I hope we can get across.
Yeah, that's the thing we all forget, right? Is that there's so many similarities in all our faiths that once you start understanding that these similarities exist, it becomes so much easier to talk to someone who you think is different from you.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I'm reminded of a very famous incident in the life of in the early history of Islam, when Muslim refugees went to Abyssinia. That was ruled by a very righteous Christian king, and they sought refuge. And the people who were trying to torment and persecute the Muslims tried to pull them back, and the king said no. He gave the Muslims refuge, and he said very beautifully that Muhammad and Jesus are two rays of light from the same sun. The same source of knowledge and compassion. And that's really the message that I'm trying to get across here, that our differences shouldn't be feared, they should actually be recognized and celebrated, and our similarities should be embraced as a means of truly understanding and recognizing the humanity in.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that there's information about Ramadan and those virtues that you're speaking of in the book. Now, a little housekeeping for the book as well, because it releases next week, right?
It releases in 2 days, on the 20th. Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah, because I'm waiting for the physical book to arrive, because I want to show it to my son. Absolutely. But we're going to get a sneak peek at a reading of some of the book, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Passion, take it away. You can take me out and let's get the book up and do
Great.
some reading.
Good. So I have to say before I jump in too far, the artist Alia Jalil is this amazing, brilliant young woman who just took the words and brought them to life in such an amazing way. I can't say enough good things about her. She really tied everything together with the art, and if you look at it, I mean, I have the physical copy in my hand, and as amazing as it looks online or in the digital spectrum, holding it in person, just seeing the quality of the art and the detail, it's really, really exciting. So Hannah and the Ramadan Gift by Qasim Rashid, illustrated by Alia Jalil. Let's go to the first page. So I'm going to read from my book just because that's the way I like reading. And we can follow along online as well to kind of get a feel for the story. So here we go. When her Dada Jaan gently shook her awake, Hannah Noor opened her eyes slowly, confused by the darkness. The sun hadn't even risen yet, but when she saw her grandfather smiling down at her, she remembered. Ramadan Mubarak! Shouted Hannah Noor, jumping out of bed. Hannah had been counting down the days to the first day of Ramadan, the holy month of fasting for Muslims. And now it was finally here. Can I fast this year? Hannah asked. Going from dawn to sunset without eating for a whole month seemed hard to Hannah. But now that she was 8, surely she was old enough to fast. How proud her grandma, Dada Jaan, would have been of her today. Not yet, my dear, Dada Jaan said. Fasting is for grown-ups, not for growing children. But if I can't fast, then how can I celebrate Ramadan? By saving the world, replied Dada Jaan with a smile. Hurry up now. Let's join the others for Sehri before the sun comes up. When Hannah Noor heard Dada Jaan's response and smelled the food of Sehri, the special breakfast of Ramadan, she forgot her disappointment. After Sehri and the morning prayer, it was time to get ready for school. Let's stop at the soup kitchen on the way to school, Dada Jaan said. Why? Hannah asked. Don't we have plenty of soup at home? Dada Jaan explained. The soup isn't for us. When we fast during Ramadan, we feel hungry. And it reminds us that all over the world, there are people who don't have enough food. So we must help them. But the world has so many people. How can we help them all? Hannah asked. We can help our neighbors, Dada Jaan replied. And that's worth the world. Later that day at school, Hannah played with her friend Maria. That's the bell. We should get back to class, said Hannah. Wait, cried Maria. I lost my grandma's necklace. Well, what does it look like? It's gold with a green gemstone. Can you help me find it? Let's look in all the places we played today, Hannah said. But the necklace wasn't on the basketball court or the kickball field. I know. Let's look in the jungle gym, said Hannah finally. And there it was. It must have fallen off when I did that backflip. Thank you, Hannah. Hannah rushed into class after the bell stopped ringing. Next time, please make sure you're on time, said Mrs. Holmes sternly. But I was just... Hannah wanted to explain, but her teacher had already begun... Hannah tried to explain, but her teacher had already started reading again. Ramadan had just begun, and already Hannah had gotten in trouble. Helping neighbors wasn't as easy as Dada Jaan made it seem. On the 11th day, Dada Jaan woke Hannah early before sunrise. Shall we save the world again today, Dada Jaan? Hannah asked excitedly. Then she remembered that today was also an important day at school, the big science fair, and she did not want to be late. Don't worry, Dada Jaan said. We're up in plenty of time to stop at the shelter before you go to school. Come, let's go. But Dada Jaan, the people at the shelter won't know that we're the ones who donated the clothes. Why does that matter, Hannah? Asked Dada Jaan. Sometimes it's simply enough to help people out of love. Besides, he whispered, with a wink, all the best superheroes work in secret, don't they? We're going to stop here for now and throw it back over to you, Joe. But that's the first half of the book. And I think you get the theme of it, that it really is trying to share the perspective of a young person, a young Muslim girl in this case, trying to experience Ramadan and understand what the point and purpose of it is. And that it's not just about fasting and going hungry, it's so much more than that. And the story paints that narrative that even if you are just an 8-year-old child, you can make such a massive difference by serving your neighbors and truly saving the world.
See, that's what I love about this is there's that gift in here that a kid, right, that the grandfather's already gifting the child that you have the power to save the world. And I hope that if that's the one thing that you get out of this, is when the kids read it, it's like, you know what? You can save the world. Kids, you can save the world. You have the power. And this is such a precious gift, right? Like, that's what I love about this piece. The other part is what I love is that superheroes work in secret.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. It was such a perfect addition to the book, and part of, I think, what you saw from the first example of her recognizing the importance of feeding the hungry or feeding those who are struggling, and then helping her friend and getting in trouble for it. I hope the message that kids take from this is that saving the world isn't easy, and sometimes it requires sacrifice, and you kind of have to put yourself out there sometimes, but that sacrifice is always worth it, because in this case, for example, while she did get scolded by her teacher, she was able to help her friend recover something that was of extremely important and precious value to her.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is people forget. So you all out there, remember, it takes effort. It takes you have to work to be kind.
Yes.
You have to try.
Yep.
You're not just like wake up and then you're kind. That's not the way it works.
Yep.
And so if you want to put goodness out into the world, if you want to save the world, you have to make an effort. You have to do something to save the world. So that's what I philosophically about this is this reminder that there's so much kindness laid within the fabric of Muslim that just people forget. It's like the real core belief of most of our religions isn't actually like all this anger and divisiveness and like my religion is better than yours. That is not where it was started. It was started to make it a better place.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's this old saying that I often think about the meaning of what is humility. And it's a very simple saying, but it's so profound. It says, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less often. That is simply putting others before yourself. And that others doesn't have an asterisk next to it. It doesn't matter if they belong to your race, religion, or tribe. It's if they're a fellow human being, focus on protecting the rights and serving those around you. This is what every great faith teaches. And this is really the core message of Ramadan as well, that this is a month of personal reflection on how you can improve yourself to truly serve your neighbors and hopefully save the world. That's the level of responsibility that we should all be willing to take on. And hopefully, if we do it the right way and develop that sense of compassion around our communities, then that compassion can spread and become infectious in a good way. Probably not the best analogy to use given the current times, but the point remains that it's compassion that we need to spread at a fast rate. If we can do that effectively, then our world will benefit for generations to come.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be lovely to have kindness as a virus?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like let that be the virus that goes out and spreads to the world. Yeah. We talked about before this about actually, this is in connection to your other book, which is Talk to Me. I love that book, by the way.
Thank you.
And because in a weird way, it's more important for this time now, because we're in this world of like mass information. Like when you tweet out something or you Facebook it out or you Instagram it, it's to everyone and anyone.
Yeah.
But there's no connection to anyone. You and the thing that you're putting stuff on.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you talked about these talk to me was, how do we do these one-on-one conversations, not just inter-religiously or interrelationally, but just like with people. So can you actually talk about that? And because I feel like it's in a lovely way connected to this book that you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this book really exemplifies that from the very beginning, when she protests to her grandfather but there's so many hungry people all over the world, how can we possibly feed them all? It's a very logical question that most adults will ask, right? And her Dada Jaan, her grandfather, put things in perspective. That you save the world by saving one person at a time, and this is actually a teaching that's in the Old Testament, in the Judaic scriptures, as well as the Quran. That if you save one life, it is as if you have saved all humanity, because within that one person is all humanity, is the value of all humanity. And so when we talk about trying to overcome, whether it's systemic racism or misogyny, or poverty, or any kind of disease that's afflicting humanity, it certainly is daunting to look at all the work that needs to be done. But if every person does what's within their capacity, then it's that old saying that many hands make light work. That's really the perspective that I want people to focus on. That you don't have to go out and solve world hunger overnight, but if you can solve your family's hunger and your neighbor's hunger, well, guess what? Now you have two, families that are working to solve hunger, and that can grow to 4 and 8. And that really begins, Chill, as you pointed out, with that personal connection, that personal accountability with those in your immediate circle of influence.
Yeah, it's in an interesting way, like, because when all this COVID happened for all of us too, we also, as an organization, Adventure Theater, the staff, the people, and had to really rethink what our purpose was.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that we really kind of honed in on was, we're so good at intense one-on-one relationships. So how do we make sure that we use that as our core, that is our focus, that my job is, even in these stories that we tell here, like you and I, and we're talking, but it's like, how do I build that one-on-one relationship with you and use that as a means to build another relationship? Right?
Well, I think it comes down to how you spend your time, how you invest your time. I think, growing up, one of the most meaningful realizations I had was that time is more important than money. Money is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those, minimalists who says that, I don't, need to enjoy the good things of this life. But time is far more important, because money comes and goes, time only goes. And so how you invest that time with people, with those you care about, with those you love, is a reflection of the kind of world that you ultimately want to create. And what I would try to impress upon, especially young people, is invest your time with the communities that you want to serve, the communities that you want to elevate. And you do that by listening to those communities, learning from those communities, and then using your platform. And this is why I'm so grateful to Adventure Theater, because this is what you do. This is the kind of work you do. You look for those voices, and then you use your platform to elevate those voices. It would be very easy for you to just sit here and talk about Ramadan on your own perspective, but you didn't do that. What you did was something really thoughtful and compassionate. You said, let's bring in somebody who has these lived experiences, who's written about them, and share our platform with Qasim to be able to hopefully influence a more positive message out there. And I think that's something that, whether you have a large platform or a small platform, if you're trying to talk about that one person and building that one relationship, you can do it. It doesn't require a ton of money. It doesn't require an illustrious 70-year history of doing great work, although that certainly helps. It just requires a compassionate person dedicated to this principle that my purpose here is to serve humanity.
Yeah, I think what's hard to remind kids is that it feels like a big thing, right? It feels like to serve humanity, to save the universe, to save everyone.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, but yet again, this reminder of that universal scripture is that you don't have to save everyone, but save someone.
No, that's exactly
right. Yeah, and this is what I love about this story is that she spends time. She doesn't. It's not like she's going out and doing these giant things in texting and trying to make this big speech. She actually takes time with individual people.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. There's a wonderful story from the early life of Prophet Muhammad that I love sharing with my kids whenever they feel overwhelmed or whenever they feel like something is too big for them to accomplish. There's a really famous story of when he was 4 years old. He was a shepherd, and he was guarding these baby goats and baby sheep and these small farm animals. And the story goes that these thieves they saw that a small child was guarding these sheep, so that they thought this is easy for us to just take these goats and sheep. And even though he was 4 years old, he stood out in front of them and put his hands up and said, I am the responsible one. You're not going to get past me. And these people thought, who is this kid telling us, we're all grown, there's many of us, there's one kid. And they asked him his name, and he told them his name. And he said it with such conviction and confidence that they were so impressed that they let him alone and they let the sheep alone as well. And the point is that we always have to try, because you never know the kind of impact we'll have simply by trying. And so I tell my kids, and I've got 3 amazing kids. My wife Aisha and I have 3 amazing kids, 12, 7, and 5. That if a 4-year-old can stand up against thieves trying to steal his property, his responsibility, then surely each of you have the confidence should have the confidence and the conviction to stand up for what's right, even if you're the only voice speaking up for that simple matter of justice and compassion.
Yeah, it's it is so interesting in this time. This is why books like yours, like this book, is in particular such an important read, right? Because we're still the minority. We're still even within. I think Montgomery County is the only one where the minority is the majority, right? Montgomery County is about 53% people of color, but that doesn't mean that everyone has a friend who is a person of color or Black, Indigenous people of color. But these books is a gateway to that. Yeah. These books, like this particular, gives me a really great peek at not just Ramadan, but of family, grandpa. These are people they just happen to be Muslim.
Yeah. Yeah. So you look at the cover of the book, right? When my daughter, she was only 4 at the time, when she saw the cover for the first time, her reaction was, "Abu, it's me. Look, it's me." And just as a father, to see that was absolutely, it was heart melting. For her to see herself represented in a meaningful way, in a way that I certainly never experienced. I don't know about you, Chill, but I certainly never experienced that as a 4-year-old child, seeing myself represented in such an authentic, not as a tokenized way, not as a by the way, let's just throw this guy a bone here, but as the center of attention. And so I think that's the kind of a future that I want to see, where every child truly sees themselves self-represented in an authentic way, in a way that gives them the confidence that not only do I belong, but I belong in a position of respect. I can command respect for no other reason than I'm a human being. I have inherent dignity, and I deserve that respect. So I hope that as the children who pick up this book, read this book, the greater message that they take from this, that whatever your faith tradition, whatever your background, you as a child, as a human being, have inherent worth. And no one can ever take that away from you. People may try, people might mock you or ridicule you or make fun of you, but just remember that no matter what, you have inherent value. You are a critical part of society. You are a critically important person to many, many people. And to always cherish and hold on to that.
Yeah, it saddens me, and yet it gives me hope that we have to affirm ourselves all the time,
Yeah.
especially in particular if you are a Black and Indigenous of color.
Yeah.
But I love that there are things available that allows us to affirm ourselves. So kids, what I mean by affirm really is just to remind you who you are, that you can look at someone who looks like you and say, that's okay to be whoever this person is, to be Hannah, to be Muslim, and to be a girl running around trying to save the world, because they exist, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And hopefully this will also inspire people to write their own narratives as well, and to tell their own stories as well. I often talk about how there's really two narratives in the world. One narrative is that we are so different and unlike one another that my success requires your failure, or your success means my failure. So therefore, I need to do everything possible to make sure that I succeed and you don't. And that's a great short-term but destructive narrative. It doesn't actually solve anything. This other narrative, which is much longer term and very difficult in the short term, is that we recognize each other for the differences that we bring to the table. And we recognize that this is not pie. Equality is not pie, right?
Exactly. It's not pie. You don't cut a piece away from somebody else.
That's exactly it, right? Equal access for me doesn't mean less access for you. Equal justice for me does not mean less justice for you. We have an opportunity to actually lift each other up and affirm each other's truth in a way that strengthens our communities, makes us safer and more whole. And that's the narrative that I want people to write, that to tell your story, be unapologetic about it. And if you can do that, and there's plenty of folks out there willing to help you, then you're going to be able to contribute to that continued, perfect union that this country is supposed to be, which we're not there yet, but I think we can continue to fight towards that.
Yeah, this is why I also love your political activity, in that you are constantly reaffirming your ideals as a Muslim, right? That's the thing people forget, is that these are ideals from your religion that is affirming the stuff that is making you such an advocate in politics, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's a great way of putting it. I mean, I don't shy away from the fact that the two greatest teachings in Islam are to serve all humanity and to serve God. And you cannot serve God unless you first serve humanity. A great man once said that if you love the Creator, then you must love the creation. If you love an artist, you must love his art. You can't say, I love the artist, but I hate your art, right? That doesn't make any actual sense. You can't say, I love God, but I hate humanity. And so the way you show your love of God is by showing love of all humanity. So when I transform from an advocate as a human rights lawyer into somebody who's trying to become a politician, someone who's trying to make policy, make actual laws, it's built in this premise that my job here is to serve all humanity without any asterisks. That's why I've written extensively and advocated extensively for persecuted Christians in nations like Pakistan, for persecuted atheists in nations like Iran and Saudi Arabia, because I'm not worried about what their belief is or isn't. I'm worried about ensuring that every person can affirm their truth without discrimination, without oppression, without any kind of bigotry or oppression. Let the truth win by a meaningful exchange based on the humanity that we all bring to the table. That's the kind of world I want to try to create.
Yeah, it's again, these times, because we've had to shelter ourselves away from the world, and then the world has essentially imploded on us and forced us to see things that we have never seen before. Like our kids are now dealing with not just shootings, but just hate and anger and emotions directed to people for just no other reason but either the way they look or what they believe.
Yeah.
And for my question to you with that is like examples like Hannah, like what do you feel like you can instill in your kids, right, to make sure that they are empathic and trying to listen to other people? What is it that you say to them?
Well, I think it starts at home with each of them learning how to interact with one another. Let's take something as simple as cookies and cake. We've taught each of them that if one of them is eating something and another person wants a piece of it, they should always give a piece. They should never be shy about giving a piece of their cake to their sibling or to anybody else. There is this, I think, societal disease of scarcity that we've convinced ourselves of. And Dr. King talked about this during his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, that as a world, there may have been a time, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said there may have been a time when there wasn't enough to address the issues of poverty in this world. But that time is long past. We don't have poverty because of a lack of resources, but because of an excess of greed. And so what I try to instill in my children, what Aisha and I try to instill in our children, is that don't ever deny somebody comfort because of a fear of poverty for yourself. Don't ever deny somebody access to food or water or withhold your charity because you think that doing so is going to make you lesser or make you poor or make you suffer.
Yeah.
There's no scarcity in the world. There's an excess of greed. And if anything, err on the side of being too generous because such a person has never been poor in the history of humanity.
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? So kids, just imagine you're at a table and you have all this food that's cooked. It's like, if you're a meat eater, I don't know if you are or not, but out there, like there's like 5 or 10 turkeys that are sitting at your table, and it's cooked and it's beautiful, and this is you at the table. It's gonna spoil. You have to eat it. You're not gonna be able to eat all 5 or whatever chickens that are in front of your table.
Yeah.
So then what's the point of having this many turkeys or chickens in front of you? It's then you got to look around and go, why do I need all of this? If I can give and be kind and be part of a universe where there are more people coming to my table and joining me and eating together, now the food all this plenty that you've created for yourself makes sense.
Yeah.
Now there's purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So you can be kind. You can choose to be kind if you have more. It's harder for other people who are not at the table to be, I guess, as kind, because they're just trying to figure out how to get the turkey on their table.
Yeah, and look, I can tell you, as growing up, there was a time where we were on food stamps ourselves. So I know what it's like to not have everything you want or everything you might need. I know that struggle. And so to the kids watching that are in that position, one, there's nothing to be embarrassed of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But two, remember that it's temporary. It will get better. Things will get better. And for those who aren't in that position, for those who can be that superhero who works in secret, be that superhero. Consider that your privilege, that you can be that superhero, and use your privilege. Use those resources afforded to you to provide that support, because not only is that going to make you a better person, it's going to make your world a better place. And as you get older, you'll feel more and more proud of being able to contribute as a secret superhero to making this world a better place.
Well, it's funny because I realize that I as a dad, my job is fairly simple in that, my job really at the end of the day is just to make sure my son is kind.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna give him all the privilege that he should be able to walk into a room and believe that everything can be his. But I wanted to be balanced with kindness. Yeah. But now as we talk, I'm like, I also wanted to be a superhero. Like, I wanted to believe he can be a superhero now. Yeah. So I love that. That is a lovely gift that this book has given me, so I can talk to him about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, Jill. I mean, that really is the key point here, that every child has that ability innate within them in their own capacities. And that's the key point, right? You don't need to compare yourself to another child. You don't need to compare yourself to anybody else. Just compare yourself to yourself, and focus on your self-improvement. If you're taking one step forward every single day or every single week or every single month, that's what you should be focused on, and how you can be that better person, that better version of of yourself. And if you want to be like my 5-year-old Hannah and dress up in an Iron Man suit while you do it, by all means, do it. We can't get her to wear a dress for the life of us. That's all she wears are Iron Man suits and Spider-Man suits, but she will not wear a dress no matter what. I think it's hilarious. It drives my wife nuts. I think it's the greatest thing in the world.
well, my son and your daughter get together and be combating Iron Man and Spider-Man. That'll be fun.
I love it. Consider it done.
Yeah, it's a great excuse to get them together. Yeah. What I also love about this is the reminder about the heroes that these little heroes are our future, right? So it's like if you can instill kindness when they're young, they will grow up to be heroes later. So I think, if anything, you all should buy this book and look at how it can actually encourage your kids to be heroes, and also see another story that they haven't seen before.
Well, I'm reminded when I was, my kid's age, in my early childhood, Ramadan was a time where our dad would drag us from house to house and give chocolates to all our neighbors. And at the time, I didn't like it at all because I wanted to eat the chocolate. I'm like, this is such a waste of chocolate that we're giving to other people when we could be perfectly well eating it ourselves. But as you get older, you begin to understand that's what service is about. It's about building those bridges, those relationships. And those are relationships that I have to this day, which is a really beautiful thing. 30-some years later, still cherishing those relationships brought about by a simple box of chocolate to neighbors many, many years ago. And I'm hoping that, as my kids get older, they can continue to carry on that legacy as well, by trying to build those relationships where previously none existed.
Yeah, and we need this story so much more now than ever. And I love that you're local, because you live in Stafford area, right?
Yeah, right here in Virginia. Yep, right here in Stafford, Virginia. Yeah. So once the pandemic subsides, maybe we can do this again in person.
I love that, because the book will be released by then.
Yes, it will.
We're getting close. I have been vaccinated. How close are you being, doubly vaccinated?
I'm very fortunate that I'm already double vaccinated, and I've already had 2 weeks since my second vaccination shot. So I'm in good. Still wearing a mask when I go out, but in the meantime, I'm fortunate that I am double vaccinated.
Yeah, just a reminder, all of you, you can still catch COVID after you're vaccinated. It just prevents you from dying.
Yes.
So all of you out there, yes, you can still get COVID. So wear a mask.
Yep.
But also, get vaccinated as quickly as you can, because then you can come to the theater.
Yeah.
And see our shows. Really, really miss you. We really, really miss you out there. So Kashan, thank you again for joining us. I know there's been in our chats and stuff, we've been posting about the book. So please, it launches in 2 days. Please buy the book. We've had. It's interesting. I think just people have been enjoying the conversation because there's a lot of yeses and likes. Right. But it's interesting. They're like, no questions, which is rare. So this is good. So thank you, Kashan. Do you have anything you want to kind of what you want to tell us about, or?
This was such a privilege to have this conversation right before the book launch. It's the first public event we've done on the book, and so it really is my honor to be invited to have this platform. So thank you for that. And then to all the listeners, if you have questions, I'm very easy to find on social media. Just my handle @Qasim on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I'm very easy to find. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns or thoughts or comments. But I think just my parting message is just to reinforce the main theme of Hannah and the Ramadan gift, that this is not just a book for Muslim children, it's a book for children, to convey this message that each of you have this ability to save humanity. Each of you have this power within you, should you choose to embrace it. And hopefully this book will encourage you to embrace it and to spread that message of positivity and compassion to those around you. That's my parting message to each of you.
Yeah, and again, Kashin Rashid is actually really accessible, because that's how we found him.
Yeah.
Our production manager Kirsten was like, "I know this book and I know who he is. And I was, okay, well, I'm just gonna direct message him," and that's how we got you. So he's super responsive. He's one of the few that really does respond to just about every ask that he's gotten. And we're really lucky to have you in our little community here. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna do like parting goodbyes. We're gonna do the slides more time. So, question, just hang out for a second.
I'm here.
Can you bring out the last slide so I can do the closing out one more time? Our little speech as we leave. Yes. So what we're doing now is just reminding people about, please donate to atmtc.org. Please buy Kashin Rashid's book. And go to Summer Camp ATMTC there we go. So go back one more pages there. Yes. So competitive scholarships are now open for auditions again. So we're going to be live with these auditions on May 17th. So please join us. And of course, Summer Camp, sign up. One slide back again, Monica. Yes. So go to summeratmtc.org. That's summeratmtc.org, and join us for our live camps. We also have some online if you're not as comfortable, but we will be in person this summer. Looking forward to that. You can take us all away. So thank you, Kashin, again. We're gonna say goodbye, but don't leave. We're just gonna say bye to our audiences. Bye, bye, bye. Take us out.